it was preferred we didn't have them.
Right.
And
Still that way.
yeah. And they actively made sure that we weren't able to. And some of the laws that we have now stem from things like that. So I think that would be a really great show.
Well, you know what? If you don't mind, let's stay here for a second, because this is something that's been on my mind. I recently turned in a grant, and in part of that, mm-hmm. I like to submit, research. If I say something, I want to be able to cite where I got that information from, right? And so there's some data that says that, 1 out of 3 Black men have been convicted of a felony, right? And so when we talk about white supremacy and structural racism, it goes so far beyond, police brutality, right? It's the prosecutors, it's the judges, it's the jury selection, it's the plea deals, it's the public defenders, it's the overcharging. A Black female judge just gave a juvenile 241 years, right? Like 241 years for a child. No matter what he's done, you gave him 3.5 life sentences. Like, come on now. And now she admits that she's over sentenced. But that's what I mean about white supremacy. You don't have to be white to practice white supremacy and racism, right? They can plug you into that machine so you keep it going. And that's exactly what she's done. Just like the Bolton John, the judge, for Amber Geiger coming down and hugging her, and it's ridiculous, right? That slavery of the mind. We've got that mentality. So if you look at it like this, men are masculinity, we're the warrior class. You go ahead and it's like you couldn't get rid of us. You abolish slavery. All right, you don't know what to do with us. So now you got Jim Crow, right? We go through all the things we go through. You incarcerate us. You put crack in our communities. You put us in these ghettos. All of these things to try to destroy us, right? And we're still here. So now, Jim Crow Joe Biden, is going to pass all these laws to imprison us, right? And separate us from our children and from our wives. And so now that happens. And so when you look at a stat of 1 in 3 have a felony conviction, how are we supposed to protect ourselves and our family if you're saying, well, if you've got a felony, you can't have a firearm? It disarms us.
Yeah, it not only disarms us where we can't incorporate that natural position of being the protector of the home. It also relegates, a large portion of society to third class status, and so now you've lost all of these otherwise protected, rights simply because you made a mistake at one point in your life. I've argued this, for as long as I can remember, even before I really kind of had a concept of what I was arguing, that, if a person, supposedly pays their debt to society, i.e. spent however long, the judge says or the jury decides they need to be incarcerated, once they're released, why is it now they're being punished again? And I thought we had laws against double jeopardy. I thought we had laws against, preventing cruel and unusual punishment and these types of things. But yet and still, we seem to, unfortunately, a lot of, Americans have been brainwashed to think they're like, okay, once you once you commit a crime, that you're a throwaway. Now you're in this throwaway category. We tend not to pay attention to our prisoners, and their living condition. I was watching. No, I was not watching. I was listening to the news this morning, and yesterday, and they were talking about air conditioning in the prisons. And how it's vital because a lot of health conditions, quickly deteriorate because of overheating.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the thing ultimately was that Americans really just, we don't pay attention to our prison population, and we have no real concern. I mean, and I think COVID really highlighted that, and we're still seeing issues around that, So my thing is, and knowing that we're, in America, we're targeted, literally targeted, and for prison, soon as it's, we've heard about the school to prison pipeline. Michelle Alexander really highlighted that in her book, Mass Incarceration, that she wrote. And, so I have a big problem with our criminal justice system. I have a big problem with our prison system. And, all of it stems, all the way back to America's, some people like to call it America's original sin. Yeah, okay. I got a few more past that one. But anyway, slavery. And so, I tell people, quite often they say, oh, slavery's, been abolished. Well, go read your Constitution and you'll see that slavery was never abolished, in this country. And I think that was one of the problems some people in our community had with our current VP, the fact that she held people over their their time that they were sentenced to, simply to use them for free labor, which is documented. So I think I might have went off on a tangent on that one, but
that's all right. I'll reel it back in. So let me ask you. I'm gonna pose some scenarios for you, right? And I don't hear anyone talking like this. So first off, other communities, particularly the white community, it's all about their guns, right? And their right to bear arms and to protect themselves and everything else, right?
Yeah.
And we don't even need to go into, what is adequate protection, a handgun or a shotgun or, an AK-47 that's full auto and, with armor piercing rounds and everything. We don't have to get into all that, right? But
right.
They will fight, full-throatedly for their right to bear and have arms, right, to protect themselves. And so when it comes to the Black community, you talked about double jeopardy. It's almost like triple and quadruple jeopardy. So one, you got the felony. You get out, now you're in the neighborhood, right? And we know that, people, it's not so much black on black crime or white on white crime, because they don't talk about that, right? It's about crimes of proximity. And so if you got a bunch of poor people together, crime is going to take place, right? Because everybody is struggling. So now I'm in this poor area. It's dangerous. I can't have a firearm to protect myself and my family. So now I'm a victim, right? And I'm sorry, a bat or a knife ain't going to be the gun no times during the day, right? Then you got these white supremacist groups that are in these militias all over the country, and they increased 4,000% when Obama came into office. You can look at YouTube, any channel right now, and watch these guys doing tactical training. And, it's like these guys look like, paratroopers ready to come and just take over. It looks like Red Dawn. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We can't protect ourselves against them. I was watching a video 2 days ago. Guy gets I don't know what it is, semi-automatic weapon in the mail, and it's got a silencer on it, right? Or suppression on it. So I guess suppression is legal, silencer is illegal. So this thing is, you know what I mean? It's quiet, and he's just geeking out. So he puts a flashlight on there, and there's red dot, and he goes out on his range. Now inside the warehouse, he walks up to a bin that has about 40 different gun parts sorted, and he could put together hundreds of guns, right? He tricks out his gun. He takes it out onto the range, which is right in the back of his warehouse. Bunch of people in there working, right? And he's got a stopwatch on his hip. And Rev, let me tell you, I mean, he's putting shots, down target, and boom, tink, 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 swinging 160 degrees. Speed holstering, reloading. And it's like, we don't have a chance. We're going to get slaughtered if they do come and decide to lose their mind, right? So not only do you have it from your own neighborhood, Now you got it from the white militias, but now you can see, violent crimes are up in this country from last year and this year, and you see people that lost their minds. You got men walking in to the produce section and shooting a 2 or 3 month old baby and then killing the mother and turning the gun on himself. You're hearing road rage, right? Kids are being killed and that. You got the 13 and 15-year-olds shooting at the cops. We're hearing, a lot of women are now, firing weapons and shooting people and doing all this stuff. So violence is escalating when you're saying, you know what, black man, you cannot protect yourself. So 1 in 3 of y'all done. You got, I would say a good portion of the church, the Christian community, don't believe in firearms. Like you said, we got a kind of tenuous history with that. So now we got a good portion of, our people that don't even want a firearm. So it's just lambs to the slaughter. What are your thoughts on those 3 to 4 scenarios there?
So one, I know exactly what you're talking about with the YouTube videos of these guys like going just military tactics and all of that.
Crazy.
This rapid training, rapid fire. The thing is, they have. Hold on 1 second. Can you don't hang up?
You good. We recording. So what
I'm saying. No, not you. Just I'm doing an interview.
What you're saying is, folks they're doing this training and they have ex-military that's teaching them these combat tactics, the tap on the shoulder, the swinging the gun, how to breach from room, just how to clear, how to take out multiple targets. You're not hunting for food. This isn't for survival. This is for, destroying people. And you want to protect your own. Then you have Black Lives Matter and you have these marches and they're tearing up your stores and everything else. And then you've got Kyle Rittenhour or whatever his name is come from another state to protect these businesses, so to speak. And then he shoots some people and he's heralded. But if a black business owner is trying to reinvent himself and protect his building and he's got a gun, he's going to jail. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's in the news now where they ended up killing a black man. They lied about it, right? And they said, well, he did something violent to a woman a while ago. He didn't end up going to jail. He got probation or parole, so he didn't do any time. He just couldn't get into any trouble. Somehow it was reported that he had a gun. They lied and said he had a warrant for something more dangerous. And then they said, oh, well, he discharged a weapon, so we shot him. But the woman that was in the car was like, he didn't even have a gun. And so now that's come out. And again, no body cams, this, that, and the other, right? So even if you try to protect yourself, but you're not doing anything and you've changed, we're coming for you. And then that's a license to just go ahead and just open murder you. So go ahead and pick up where you left off there, Rev.
Yeah, so it is, and it's a shame. And so like I was saying with the YouTube videos, and I'm watching these guys, and they're doing these trainings, and some of them, they've gotten real sneaky with their advertising of their YouTube channel. And it's like, oh, look at this gun and that gun, and they're getting these sponsorships or whatever, right? But overall, what you see, like you said, what you see is these just real tactical trainings. This isn't, training for hunting animals, at least as far as what we would consider an animal. Now, what they may consider an animal, it may be a different story. And if they're saying, hey, I'm training, this training is, whatever. And then the second problem, being avid, gun owner and, user, I believe in my Second Amendment rights. Problem that I'm hearing within our community is that ammo is very hard to come by right now. Now, for some reason, certain people are getting, still getting just free access to it. I don't know what their means of getting their ammo is, but it's very hard for us to get our hands on ammunition right now. So people have, at least for me, people like me, I haven't been able to, get out and practice regularly because I just can't, get a hold of the ammo. So it's like I need to conserve what I have in case of an emergency. But, so it prohibits me from, training. Now, on the other hand, one thing I do like that I'm seeing is the organization that's been getting a lot of publicity of late. I've been kind of watching them for a while, but Grandmaster Flex, Grandmaster J, I think it was Grandmaster J. His organization, the We Don't Give a coalition. Yeah, so they're in step and in line with these white paramilitary so-called militias that are being formed around the country. And I know that there's several chapters throughout the country. I'm not totally in line with their frame of thinking, completely. So I would like to see maybe some other organizations pop up that maybe kind of tweak, their mission statement, so to speak, in a way. But I think it's vital that everybody in our community ought to, learn to, have the right to bear arms and learn how to properly store and use a firearm. I know it was Ida B. Wells. She advocated that everybody should have a Winchester on their mantle, and so I'm all with her. Like, yeah.
You need that gauge too, because you don't really need to aim that. Just point it down the hall.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But with those, you got to be careful with what you're using. And that's why it's important to kind of learn what you're doing with as far as weapons go, because when you get to talking about shotguns, you want to be careful with what you're loading in there, and everybody's they're quick to say, oh, let me go get some double aught and this and that, and you don't want to put nothing in there too powerful when you're in the home, because it could possibly penetrate the walls, and then you're hitting a loved one, or hitting someone unintentionally, or it even could penetrate, the perpetrator, and then you're again liable to hit somebody beyond what your intentions are. So you have to be cautious and aware of what type of ammo you're using beyond just the type of firearm.
Well, you know what? That's facts, Rev. And let me get into that, because I what I see is a lot of demonization from the left. And I was actually watching the episode of the Young Turks, and they were talking about, just this thing. And they were saying, well, look, the Republicans are going crazy. I mean, even California is now, reversing their ban on semi-automatic weapons or whatever their deal is. You got Texas that wants you just to go ahead, just buy a gun off the shelf like you're buying some deodorant. It's all good. You don't need no training or nothing, right? When you see all the craziness that's going on in Florida. And so what the Young Turks were saying was like, well, look, suicides are up. And more successful suicides are by gun than anything else. So the more people that have a gun, they can commit suicide. So, we can't have guns in the house, or we have accidents, or, you see these road rage situations. And it was like, well, if these guys didn't have a gun, it wouldn't have happened, right? But on the other side, it's like, look, we got to protect ourselves from the bad people. And really what it is it is about gun safety. And I think that's the piece that's missed, right? You have to be able to protect yourself, but protecting yourself doesn't mean, hey man, I just got this gun in the house and there's no training, there's no education on there, there's no practice, there's no conversations, right? So, if you would, as a firearm owner, what do you talk with your family about? Because I have friends that are like, my wife is like, I don't want no guns in the house. It just ain't gonna happen. Other folks are like, no, we're doing this. The wife is in there. They're taking the kids out. They've got the safety. I mean, you could do trigger locks. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that you can do. And then on top of that, let me just add one thing. When you're talking about, a shotgun and you're trying to, there's a potential intruder, that's part of the training, right? Look, we live here. We're a family. and we could, face an intruder, right? And so at the end of the day, someone who's high on drugs doesn't give a darn about that alarm or that locked door. So they're coming in and, you're going to have to stand and deliver. So there has to be some training because you don't want to just be shooting wildly, right? So, and if you do have to shoot someone, you're going to have to deal with the consequences of that too. I know because I've shot someone before. And you're going to deal with it mentally, right? There's something that goes along with that. So you train for those scenarios, and you know what you're going to do. Maybe you're going to shoot up in the ceiling and see if that's going to be enough of a deterrent. Now, some gun owners are like, you come into my house and that's it. There is no warning shots. That's a whole nother thing. But if that's the case, right, you can tactically, this is your domain. So you have safety. You've got your tactical plan, just like how you're going to egress if there's a fire or something else. Just go ahead and talk about that, Rev.
So my house is kind of unique. It's split a little bit. It's split. So my wife and I, we're totally fine, and both of us. We both enjoy, going to the range, practicing, and so forth. Now, when it comes to
Rev will bless you and bury you at the same time. Go ahead, Rev.
Yeah. hey. And I'm gonna get around to that part. When it comes to the children now, I've never been the type to fill my kids' heads with illusions and fantasies or whatever. So they've never once thought that Santa Claus was real, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, none of that. Look, no. Yeah, if I'm gonna work and bust my butt and my sweat, tears, and blood, to give you something, then you should know where it's coming from and not think that this is some fanciful just magical thing. No, understand the late night and the times that you wait, that's because we're providing for you. Now of course that's in relation to the fact that God makes this all possible. Now so when it comes to the kids, they the girls are absolutely totally anti-firearm. They don't want to train, they don't want to learn how to use them, anything. But nevertheless, because you're living in my house, that there are firearms here, because like I said, I've never, kind of hid that from my children. You're going to know the basics, now, whether as an adult or older, you choose that, hey, I don't want anything to do with them. That's fine. That's up to you. But you're going to know the basics. And we discuss that, biannually, twice a year, like, hey, let's go over these or whatever. And but my girls, they don't want anything to do with it. My oldest son, he's like his dad. He loves it. He's like his mom. He's all for it. And then my youngest son, he's kind of I don't know, in between. You know what I'm saying? He hasn't really kind of made his mind up one way or the other. Some of our weapons he likes to, use. Others he don't care for as much. But I think he's, kind of coming around to like, yeah, because like I tell him, this is ultimately, what I'm saying, a last, a very last option of defense, of yours or a loved one's life. Now, if there's any other means possible, to achieve safety, even to the point of running away, then by all means do so. I'm not one of those people that believe in like, hey, stand your ground. Okay. Just because, you broke into my house, that doesn't mean that I automatically need to shoot you or kill you or, aim to kill you. Now, if I can safely get my family out of that house and away from, whatever potential danger that person brings, then by all means, I'm going to try to do that before I just say, okay, well, y'all just stay here. I'm going to go and, kill this person. Like, no, let's, if there's a way to escape, because, we have insurance, things are replaceable. Lives are not, and just because, as I was just talking about earlier, a person makes a mistake in life doesn't mean that at some point they won't grow beyond that mistake and say, hey, you know what? I'm not this person. I don't want to be that person. And I don't want to have to, I would not want to take a life just simply because I had the legal right to do so, and so I would say, hey, let's look for a way of escape. And even, if I had to draw on somebody, I know the rule is, hey, don't point your gun at something you're not willing to shoot. Well, if I can point my gun and that's enough to deter the person, then I don't feel like I need to pull the trigger. So again, it's and I teach this to my children. Listen, this is a very last means of preserving your life or the life of a loved one, or they're not at the point where they're concealed carry and they're out in the streets and preserving other people's lives. So in our conversations with them, that's the understanding. And so that's my belief on that. Now, I don't, and I don't put that on anybody else. Now, when it comes to the other part, as far as what was the other part you were just talking about? Dang it, it was on the tip of my mind.
So the church, a lot of folks in the church are like, they don't want guns.
Yeah. So now it's like, hey, you know what? Again, everybody's entitled to their own beliefs, right? My personal belief is, God innately instilled in each and every one of us to preserve our own lives. So you ask a person, say, hey, you know what? And hypothetical, right? You never learned how to swim. You're on the ferry, and you fall off. You're going to Seattle, planning to, just have a good time with the family. A freak wave comes, knocks you off the ferry. You're in the middle of the water. Are you not going to fight to try and preserve your life? Even though you don't know how to swim, you're still going to fight that water, right? You're not just going to, give up and let yourself sink to the bottom. You're going to fight. That's because we all have an inherited innate, sense to preserve our own lives. And so, and that's by any means necessary. We look at, even in the Bible, Jesus asked his disciples, he said, hey, look, do y'all got swords? You're going to need them. He's like, yeah, we got 2 here. Okay, cool. Just, put them to the side. And he say, hey, go on out there and, use them swords and start some mess. He's like, no, just, you got them, cool. Okay, just hold them down. You know what I'm saying? Like, just hold them down, Peter, one gospel say Peter got a little buck. Another gospel say it was, one of the disciples. But in any case, one of them got a little frisky when they came to get Jesus and cut somebody ear off. And Jesus like, nah, I don't need y'all doing all that. So what that teaches me is that the purpose of having those swords was for self-protection, not for offensive purposes, but for defensive purposes, to defend yourselves if necessary. So some people may interpret those scriptures differently and believe differently, and that's their right. What I'm saying? Ultimately, my right ultimately is to say that no matter what, I'm going to defend my life. I'm going to defend the lives of my loved ones and anybody else, life that's in potential danger if I'm around. I'm not going to just lay down and die or let somebody else around me just die, senselessly because somebody's having and I hated when he said that. It was just like, for real. But anyway, a bad day. Talking about the dude in Atlanta. That's bad day. But anyway, so I'm not the type that's gonna, just kind of roll over for that. That's the other point I wanted to kind of touch on, them young Turks, you know, and oh, this gun and that gun. Okay, one thing I want to say about that is that when we look and we see these, you know, mainstream liberals and progressives arguing for, you know, getting rid of guns, you know, the truth and the matter of the fact is that is nigh near impossible to do. You know, we have more guns in America than people, you know, and yeah, and in order to go and say, hey, I'm going to go and find every single gun and take them, that is impossible. You're liable to start an actual civil war because some people are just that serious about their guns. Some people own more guns than they have digits, toes, limbs, and probably hairs on their head. You know, let alone, you know, for like you can't even use that many, but they have that many. You know, so it's not near impossible to sit there and say, hey, we're gonna, you know, just get rid of all the guns.
Right.
Then you have to consider, you know what I'm saying, that a lot of weapons, you know, just how like now they sit here and they put these bans on certain weapons. Okay, you put bans on certain weapons, that's fine, right? But what about the ones that existed before that ban? They're still legal because they already existed. You know, at some point they put a ban on Tommy guns, but you know, there's still Tommy guns out there because people owned them before the ban was put on. And so you can still have them. And then ultimately, there's always these loopholes to say, okay, well, you can't have this unless you have this type of stamp or sticker or whatever else. So no, it's not as easily accessible, but it's still accessible because, you know, that's who America is. And so that's just nonsense to say things like, oh, this person wouldn't have killed themselves if they didn't have that weapon. No, because if they wanted to kill themselves, whether they had that weapon or not, they would find a way to kill themselves. So there's literally thousands and thousands of ways to die. So, okay, we live in a hypothetical world where weapons just don't exist. That same person that has that unfortunate, you know, demon in them driving them to kill themselves, you know, they're going to find whatever other means possible to do that, whether it be, you know, jumping off a bridge or, you know, jumping into traffic or whatever, you know, they'll find another way. And then what do you say? Okay, well, if it wasn't no cars, we should get rid of all the cars. Nobody argues that. You know, nobody says, well, we need to get rid of all the cars, and they cause a lot of deaths every year. You know, people getting in head-on collisions on purpose to kill themselves, drive off of bridges and cliffs. A few years ago, I don't know if you remember the one family, it was down in California, and the lady drove off the cliff with her partner and the kids in the car. I think maybe one or two of the kids survived or something, but, you know, purposely did that. You know, so do we now argue that, hey, we need to get rid of all of the cars? No. You know, do we argue that, hey, we need to make tougher laws on purchasing vehicles? No. You know, so why is it that this particular item is like, hey, well, you know, it's deadly? Well, you know what? A pencil's deadly. You know, a pen's deadly. There's a lot of deadly things, you know, that we sell that we don't want to put, we don't, you know, argue to make it harder to purchase or restrict or anything else because, you know, we just, I don't know, you know,
it was weird. They had made this, you know, kind of weird comparison. It's like, wait a minute. So you're the liberal side, you know, they're all for Bernie and this and that. And it's like, so it's free choice, right? It's my body, it's my choice, you know, do whatever you want to do, live and let live. And it's like, okay, so if someone tries to take their life with a gun, you know, that's tragic. But they're like, well, if they didn't have a gun, other forms of suicide aren't 100% successful. And then at least the person's alive, right? And, you know, sometimes they make a recovery, but at the end, at least they're alive. And it's like, well, but that's not your call to make. You know, that's their life and that's their choice to make, even though it's a, you know, it's a horrible choice to a lot of people, right? You're now dictating what choices they have, right? And yes, you should not make a permanent, decision for a temporary problem. You know what I'm saying? But again, that's your decision, right? I mean, if I have stage 4 cancer or something that's going to kill me and I'm going to die in 3 weeks, I don't think I should be forced to sit up in a hospital bed until I draw my last breath in pain. If I want to, go ahead and take myself out and put myself out of my misery, I think that should be my right to do so. You shouldn't make me stay alive. You know what I mean? So that's just an interesting thought on there. And so I think it's what gets dangerous and convoluted in that is, that side kind of latches on to that. And then that's more of us that kind of fall into that paradigm of, yeah, I don't want a gun. We don't need a gun. Yeah, go ahead and restrict it. And all it does is go to restrict, guns from us, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
And now what we're telling black men is, hey, and men in general, right? Be in touch with your feelings, right? You can have a full range of emotions. You can be sad. You can be angry. You can be this, right? We have mental health issues. We need to heal. So now you go and you get mental health counseling. Well, what's the big thing? Right? Well, we need to keep the guns out of people that have mental health issues. So now if you've seen a mental health, provider, well, now can I get a firearm? No, because you were on medication because you had a bout of depression. You see what I'm saying? So now you got the felony or you got a medical issue or this, and you don't have any guns and you have no form of protection. And when they come, it's just a slaughter. And if you don't think Tulsa can happen again, it absolutely can, right? And some of them people were trying to protect themselves. They just were overrun. But right now, many in the black community, we ain't got nothing. And I just believe we're going to be slaughtered.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that wholeheartedly, my brother. Not only, the mental, health aspect of it, but also the what is it? Dang it. The felony aspect, where they're sitting there, oh, you're a felon, so you can't have one, all these different so-called reasons. My thing is, listen, I never thought to trust my life to somebody else's capabilities, and and that's what we do. We put our hands in the lives of law enforcement, every single day by saying, hey, I'm not gonna, get a firearm because I'm gonna wait for the police to get here. You can literally die in less than a second, so why should I, put myself in that type of harm and risk to say that, I'm going to die here, I possibly could die here within a second, when I could also save myself in the same amount of time. And then my other argument against all of these different rules and laws is criminals don't care. Listen, that's why they're a criminal, because they don't abide by the law. So when you make all these different laws and say, oh, well, we're going to make this harder and that harder, all you're really doing is making it harder for the people who are actually going to abide by the laws, because the criminal don't care. Look, he's going to use the gun regardless because he's a criminal. He's going to do what he's going to, I don't know if you remember when we was having that, that trend of these kids ramming in the stores and stealing all the guns. I think it happened right out there in Tacoma one of the times at Bullseye, and they'd take these trucks and ram into the gun stores and then just steal all the guns and go running. Hey, look, they're criminal. They don't care that you got a law and say, oh, we ain't supposed to have it.
Right.
That's why they're a criminal. So when you make these laws, you just make it simply harder for a person like me that's like, look, I'm going to do everything legal. I'm not out to go stick nobody up or, shoot my adversary or anything like that. But the person that will do that, you're not making anything harder for them because, they're going to obtain their weapons, illegally anyway. So
look, and they know it, and they tell you don't make yourself a soft target. You know what I'm saying? So now you've been convicted of a felony, you can't get your gun rights back, right? And we know that things that affect, Americans are always going to disproportionately affect the Black community, right? White folks catch a cold, we catch a flu, and that's facts. So these things are going to impact us. And, Ice Cube has a saying, better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And you have to be able to protect your family. You know what I'm saying? Because they can't come back. And let's switch a little bit, Rev, because I want to ask you this. Why in our community, you talked about, folks just standing around and watching, the murder happen, right? And maybe they got their cell phone out and that's it. And they're, stop, don't, this and that. So why are we just still sitting around and watching it? One, right? So we see these bouts of, police brutality and other things going on, and everyone just sits by and watches it. I mean, when you think about it, over that course of 9 minutes, yeah, you might have lost your life, but really?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you had tackled them or pushed them or whatever, they would have jumped on you and it would have been a bad day for you and you'd be in jail for a long time. But George would be alive, you would be in jail, but it would have broken it up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it might have snapped him out of it, to the point where it's like, oh man, all these people are watching and videotaping, right? So that's the one thing. It's like we just are so docile that we just sit around and watch our brothers and sisters get murdered in cold blood, and we just cry, yell, and just hold our cell phones. It's crazy. So I don't understand that. And then we'll go and you got Ben Crump coming out there getting settlements for folks, and then it's like, we don't want y'all to riot. The person that got murdered wouldn't want that, so go home, everybody. And then in the same respect, right? Again, the police kill 1,000 people per year. Those are the numbers. They killed 1,000 people last year. They're on pace to kill 1,000 people this year, right? And we're talking about white, black, everything. So again, you take Chicago, you take, a Florida right now and some other places, and we're having more than 1,000 deaths. And where's the march, black folks? Why y'all ain't marching in your own towns to march against your own kids that are killing y'all? I don't understand that, right? So at the end of the day, and I hate to bolster a Republican talking point, but it is facts. Cops kill 1,000 people. We're killing, 5, 6, 7, 8 times that amount. I don't know what the number is, but it's a lot more. And it's like, where's the outrage from our own community? And these are your sons and daughters that are doing the killing. Like, how are y'all continuing to allow this to happen? Well, what are your thoughts on that, Rev? Because I'm like perplexed on that.
Well, first, I guess, as far as, I'll say this first, power never conceded anything without a demand. As far as, the deaths within our own community, I think you said it very well. It's not, I don't believe in black on black crime, white on white crime. Crime happens because of proximity, and as much as we like to, believe that America has moved on past a lot of, as I was saying earlier, sins, the racial inequalities that we have set up for ourselves, they're still very deeply ingrained. So I think I was talking to you about this before, how Chicago is still very segregated. Mm-hmm. And I would dare argue that most of America is still very segregated. You have, in any given, major metropolis city, you're going to have an area where that's predominantly black, predominantly white, predominantly Latino, and so forth, right? People tend to gather with those whom they most closely resemble, and look like, right? Now, that's not to say that that there's no mixing whatsoever, because there is, but my point in this is that, every racial group, and some of these terms I just use because that's just common language. Not that I necessarily believe in race, but in any case, a lot of these racial groups, they segregate themselves into, segregate amongst themselves. And so you have crime happening, in those lower income places where, living is, people are striving to achieve those so-called American dreams and the things that's flashed in front of them 24/7, hypnotizing them that, oh, you have to have this to be happy and successful, So in that sense, then you have white on white crime, black on black crime, and Latino on Latino crime, and Asian American on Asian American crime, and so forth and so forth, right? Because it happens amongst ourselves, So I would have to say, in that sense, why should we be the only ones that the onus is put on for us to say, hey, let's get out and protest about the crime that's happening in our neighborhood? Well, why don't we, make the same argument for the other racial groups and say, hey, why aren't y'all protesting the crime that's happening in your neighborhood? So you mean to tell me that, black peoples are the only ones that's committing violent acts and the only ones that, are, doing things? No, because we can look at our prison systems and see that, even though we may be the majority in a lot of places, but when you go, and that's overall, but when you go by population, overall population, you have, a larger percentage of the white population incarcerated than you do the black population, because they are the dominant group in this society. So then why aren't the white people out, saying, protesting and screaming and saying, hey, put down the guns, stop the violence and everything in their communities? And why aren't we putting the onus on them to say, hey, y'all need to get out and protest in the streets about what's going on, in your neighborhoods? If we look at the FBI statistics, and I don't know if you can pull it up on your computer, but if you go and look at the FBI statistics for, particular crimes, you're going to see that you have a higher percentage of whites over blacks, that commit a lot of your major violent crimes, when you look at it by population overall. So again, why is there no call for them to do the same?
So what I'll do is I'll say this about it, right? And we were having this discussion before about another topic. And so what I think that serves to do is we cannot wait for the government or other groups to stop oppressing us. We've got to take control of that ourselves. So we can get caught up in the political quagmire of, well, it's not just black on black. Well, it's white on white. It's like, it's not the same, but it's almost like, white lives matter, blue lives matter. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, y'all need to talk about it too. And it's like, well, wait a minute, yes, they do need to talk about it, but I'm not even concerned about them. I'm concerned at the fact that, we are killing each other and something has to happen, right? And these are our daughters and our sons that are doing it. And how are we going to stop that? Because we don't want them to militarize the police and put it into our communities and try to stop it, right? But then we're not stopping it ourselves, and I believe that we've got to be accountable and we have to stop it ourselves, right? So, while I get what you're saying, they should be called out. I'm not worried about the sticks and stones may break my bones, and let's get caught up in this thing here. We got to find a way to save our community. And it's got to be us, right? We've got to be sovereign, in the sense of, we've got a problem. We need to fix the problem, and we can fix the problem. The question is how do we do it, and why haven't we been doing it? I mean, we look at the Panther Party and even the gangs, and how they were formed originally was for protection, right, from white supremacists. So why, can't we reestablish that? Why hasn't that come back in these pockets of inner cities where this crime is rampant, where it's like, what, our men, which, honestly, a lot of them are in prison or dead, are like, you know what, no more. We're banding together and we're going to go ahead and take it into our own hands. And there used to be a time in the neighborhood, oh, you do something to one of the girls in the neighborhood, the whole town's coming from you. You were telling me that, right? You got to go. You're not safe here. Your family got to go. We're not going to take your life, but you up out of here. So, when do we do that? And I would say, as a deeper discussion, I think it kind of goes back to single parenthood and a lot of single motherhood where fathers aren't in the home, right? And then you have that, I was talking about this yesterday in my own experience, right? Every child needs the father and the mother. I didn't have a mother. I had a father, right? So I had the opposite experience. But, now you resent your father, and then the son ends up being raised to a point where, the mother is going to kick you out, and then you're resentful of everything. And now you're just terrorizing everyone, right? You don't love yourself. You don't love anyone. And you're just terrorizing. So I know I kind of unpacked a lot there, but one, I believe we need to take accountability on that and not worry about them not taking accountability for their own thing, right? If they take accountability and they say, well, white on white crime is just as bad or worse than black on black crime, it doesn't save any of our black lives, right? It doesn't save any of our black babies. So that's got to be our focus. And then two, why do you believe we haven't formed any of these groups to take back over our cities and keep ourselves safe, to push the drugs out, to do those things, to create some other opportunities? And I guess three, what could be done if not some of those things?
Well, I think two on one, I can kind of answer in one shot. All right. And that's pretty much the thing is, I think, well, from my perspective is, we have allowed ourselves to become brainwashed. Okay. And so you look at, what, as you were saying back in the day with the Panthers, and even, gangs in my city, the Vice Lords and Disciples and Stones and all of these other ones, Latin Kings, all of these were originally, developed to like kind of as protection mechanisms for people within that community, right? Mm-hmm. And so, as I was saying earlier, you can't, sometimes you can't wait around for the police to come and rescue you from, whatever. So we've kind of sold our souls to the devil. Unfortunately, we have a generation that's, saying increasingly, well, I ain't gonna say a generation, but we have generations that have become increasingly more concerned with achieving, the so-called, American dream, getting, and we see it and we laugh on TV, Black Friday comes around and people are, running over each other to get, saying a TV that's going to be obsolete in the next, year or two.
Right.
So, we constantly continue to do these things. And it's like, at some point we have to, teach one of these generations that, listen, this isn't what's important, because that's really all that, we're fighting over. We're constantly fighting over these materialistic things. I think I was telling you about a book that I had called Brainwashed. And I really need to get that to you, get you a copy of it, because it's a fabulous book that really kind of breaks down this mindset, and it's all back, saying to, again, and we can trace this back to, the plantation, where it's, it's divide and conquer. When you can divide a people, you can conquer a people, and unfortunately, America likes to keep its people divided. And I'm not even talking about race right now. I'm talking about, social economic divisions where we have the haves and the have-nots. And the problem right now that America is kind of experiencing is that there's this ever increasing ravine between haves and the have-nots that is becoming very polarized, and so they're trying to kind of figure ways around that right now and deal with that. But as long as we continue to, have this mindset that think all the way back to our original mashup where we did the individualism versus collectivism, where it's like, hey, I'm out for me and mine. I really don't care, about the whole so much, as long as I can get, that new Gucci belt that just came out, for 2020. Even though I know, they're going to have another one for 2021 and another one for 2022. As long as I can get the new iPhone, even though I know 6 months they're going to have the next, I-13 or whatever else,
Right.
And so it's all about, the individual. Whereas when we look back in the past, even before, if we go even farther back, let's go back, to Tulsa, which, just recently happened, right? We're going to celebrate Juneteenth, which is going to happen, right? The mindset coming up out of slavery and in those times was we need to work as a collective, as a whole. If we pitch in as a whole, we can achieve more, and we were achieving great, things in very short order, despite, the racism, and the actively, trying to deny us things because we acted with a collective, the community did better. But, we're actually doing good. Well, we got to break that down, and now we got to divide them, because we let them up out of one system. Now, they're something for themselves that we don't want them to have, and that's the plain reality of it. And unfortunately, our people, we won't look back in history and see where we've come from. We won't look back in history and see who we really are. A lot of our people, they trace our history back to, 1619. Oh, the 1619 project. No, we are far greater than that, far older than that. Like, come on, you think that's all we ever were slaves? Like, where did they get the slaves from? Who were we before we became enslaved? So we don't look to educate ourselves on these things. And it's like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. That was so long ago. No, it really wasn't. We look at the span of history and time, what happened to us, man, that was, like this afternoon. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't, yesterday or last week or, last month. That was like a couple of hours ago. That just happened, but we want to, ignore it like it didn't just happen. We want to ignore it like, the aggressions and the microaggressions and the passive aggressiveness and all of those aren't still currently active in the system that we live in. And, like we can just kind of, play like we're 5 years old. And if I close my eyes, then it's not really there. We play peekaboo like we 2 years old. No, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care how much you cover your eyes, it's still right there in front of you and it's affecting you and it's dealing with you. And until we get that mindset that, you know what, I can't do good unless my brother, that lives across the street from me, next door to me on the next block is doing good too. I got to have a concern for their welfare too. I can't, just say, oh, it's as long as I get mine, Right. And then they prop up these puppets in front of us and say, oh, you can get here too. They put a Will Smith, a Oprah Winfrey, Denzel Washington, and a Bill Cosby, and, these type of, images. But when, you look at us over the whole, the whole, you sit here and you say, well, you know what? What percentage does that really account for? And then not only what percentage does that really account for, let's listen to their actual lived experiences on what it took for them to get there. And then let's listen to the lived experiences of the other man and say, hey, what did it take for you to get there? It was a whole lot easier for you than it was for, Oprah, for Denzel, for Will Smith, for Bill Cosby, and everybody else. D.L. Hughley, I can go on down the list. Okay, yeah, they got a couple of millions, but my thing, and I ain't never been no dummy, I'd rather be the one who writing the check than getting the check. So what you paid, you paying Will Smith $20 million a movie. Okay, good for him. But if you can afford to pay him $20 million a movie, then how much you got? If you can write that check like that, okay, here you go, 20 mil, then how much are you really making? And then why am I not seeing people in your position who, look like me, that's able to write a check to Mark Wahlberg for 15? Here you go, here go 15, gonna do this movie. Why I ain't seeing people that look like me in those positions? And when we start to think like that as a whole, then we can move past the violence that, that we continue to be outraged. But again, we got to educate ourselves to think like that.
Rev, the other thing is too, is other groups get to, go and seek out the American dream, even immigrants coming from other countries, but for us, we have to live vicariously for the few that are able to excel and make it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I feel about it. It's like, oh, well, look, Obama made it. Like you said, Will Smith made it. Jay-Z made it, so there you go. There it is. So y'all should be good. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, but everybody else can get the American dream, right? Or they can chase after it. So, I'm solution oriented, and for me, what I see, Rev, and I'm gonna lay some things out, and you brought up Denzel, so I'm gonna get into what was the movie he did, where he was the retired CIA op, and he would time himself for how long he was gonna take his adversaries out.
Yeah. Was that Equalizer?
The Equalizer, right. I see a few things. One, okay, let's go with the fantasy thing first, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let me set it up, because either way, there's realism and then there's fantasy.
Yeah.
We have to be accountable, right? We cannot wait for, again, the government or other groups to free us from the oppression that we are oppressed from, and then our own oppression, right? We can only free our own bonds, right? And in a conversation I was having with Tasia, I'm like, at this point, they wound it so tight, they could go ahead and let it go. It's on autopilot now. We just go ahead and destroy ourselves. They've done enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we have to be accountable. But I see these issues, and on the one hand, you have the lost, that they're never going to wake up. They're never going to fly right. They're just done, right? There's nothing that you can do. You've got some folks that could be swayed in the middle, made some mistakes, heading down the wrong path, but could come back to the light, right? Mm-hmm. You got other folks that are kind of living in the light and just doing what they can to hang on and trying to keep their head down. And then you have, like you said, your politicians. I think a lot of folks in the Black church, they're like, we're just going to pray about it, and nothing ever really happens, and they try to ignore it, right? So we're all kind of chasing after our meritorious manumissions, and we don't want to put our stuff in jeopardy, right? We want our kids to go to a good school and live in a safe place, and we want to have our car and our clothes. We want to enjoy our sports. We want to be able to go out to eat and do all these things, which is why none of us would intervene when, a cop can kneel on a neck for 9 minutes and not one person be like, no, this ain't standing. We just going to stand there and cry and do whatever, right? So, we have to be accountable, but we've got probably the most powerful in the weakest way, which I would say is the church, because it's not the warrior class, right? But the church is about, what we're going to pray. And I think where the church ended up going wrong, where it's like, hey, you know what, we're going to give you money. The government's going to give you money, but you can't really, speak out now. You know what I'm saying? The church used to be separate and used to speak out more full-throated, but now it seems to have lost its teeth, right? The fangs are gone. And so I think that's an issue. And so what are we going to do? And this is where the equalizer comes in. There's a percentage of us, and if we're going to be accountable and take care of our own, then we need an equalizer to come in and take those guys out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're a dredge on society. You're keeping us down. You're not going to turn your ways, and it's time for God to smite you. And the smiter is the equalizer. So that's the fantasy part. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first, I kind of agree with your 4 breakdowns, except for maybe I think it was the first or the second one. I don't think anybody is unreachable. And like I said, one particular thing is that just because a person we engage them at a point in life where they may be at their lowest. They may be lost in the sauce, so to speak, as they'll ever be. That doesn't mean that there's not hope for redemption for them, and that at some point they won't wake up.
I agree. So do it like the movies, where they say you either turn or burn. This is it.
Well, let's hope that they decide to turn before they burn. But so. And being solution oriented, right? The church, I won't say that it has, kind of lost its voice. I think I would argue that white evangelicals have dominated the media as far as being the voice of the church. Now, there are a lot of go along to get along, churches and church leaders. I'm not one of them. I ain't gonna
come on, pray. Y'all go home. But they're the power brokers right now. They're the voice, and they represent the church. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't really see Al Sharpton as representing the church, me personally at least. But then that's just me. But I'll put it this way, right? Here's again getting back to solution orientated. I think at some point I would like to start a type of African diaspora studies for the younger generation. Say middle school age kids. Reaching them kind of at that point. And I think that's where the solution comes in. If we can interject into the upcoming generations, how to be pro-Black, without being, anti-American, and I don't think the two have to be synonymous. I think you can be pro-American and pro-Black, but it's, unfortunately, the way the society's kind of set up right now, whenever we take pride in ourselves, is perceived as a threat to society, for us to be proud of ourselves. Saying pro-Black, it's like, oh, why you got to be pro-Black?
Rev, that is a hell of a statement. It's like, how can you be pro-Black and then not be anti-American? We're going to table that one, because that's like a whole hour discussion. I love the fact that you touched on that, and I think we should go down that road. But continue. That's awesome.
Bruh, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, and we can table that one, but I'll just make this a small preview. There would be no America if there was, no African American. Okay, so we wouldn't. This country wouldn't exist as we know it today without us. So anyway, so I would like to start something where, I could start introducing younger minds to, certain material that will get them to think in a more critical and deeper way than, just looking at stuff on the surface, because when you just take life as it's given to you and presented to you, then you kind of get caught in that trap. These advertisers get paid big bucks for a reason, because they know how to market to different groups. This is a science, to be honest. It's a science. It's taught in college how to market. People paying thousands of dollars, to go through college to learn how to be a marketer, and an advertiser. And then they get out and they're making, millions of dollars doing this because it's effective. And it's clearly effective because we see, how how driven by capitalism, our nation is. Even our younger kids, they're throwing tantrums in the store because, they didn't see a certain item, shoved into the middle of their Saturday morning cartoon. Well, now it ain't even Saturday morning cartoon. It's everyday, all day cartoon. But, they got a ads target at our young ones where they're literally willing to defy their parents, and embarrass, their names in public for a material item. And so the value that's being taught to our young ones is being taught by the TV, the cell phone, the TikTok video, the YouTube video, the Facebook video. These are the things that are reaching our young ones, and they're not learning, manners, respect, what things truly have value and what things truly don't. And so their influence is coming from media, is media driven. And so, my grand plan and in things and overall is, for my media company that I'm developing, is to produce, a different type of media that will have a different type of influence than what we currently see. And so that's why, I'm committed to doing these discussions with you each week, because I know that iron sharpens iron, and I know that I grow by talking with you because you're an intelligent person, and I don't waste my time speaking with fools. The Bible didn't taught me better than that, and so, these type of things are going to be the solutions in the future. And do I have a get rich quick scheme fast? No. I know this is going to take time because it took time for us to get to this point, and so it's going to take time for us to get out of it. And so I'm dedicated to doing that. And I may not even see any amount of success in my lifetime, but I pray that what I'm developing and building, that others will, take it and, take it to the next level and, continue it where our people, can not only get back to what we had, say, in Tulsa and Rosewood and other communities, but even beyond that, where we have self-pride in ourselves and we're not looking for the other to, to do for us, but we're doing for ourselves. And, we're elevating ourselves and we're teaching our youth, the right type of things. And we're not allowing, media to, write their narrative for their life, because that's what's happening. And that's why we're seeing, all the deaths amongst our youth and stuff, because, we're allowing media to write their narratives. And unfortunately, some of the people in our community have sold out to that, and they contribute to that, and sending our youth down the wrong path. You look at and I don't know the current one, so I know these may be out of date, but you look at a Waka Flocka Flame and the Dougie Fresh guy, whatever. I don't know their names. But
wow, that's quite the divergence there. Waka Flocka Flame and Dougie Fresh. Like,
where's going with this one? No, not Dougie Fresh. Do the Dougie. Do the Dougie thing. I don't know. I didn't mean Dougie Fresh. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, these mumble rappers. These kids running around here with gold in their mouth, their whole bodies tatted up, and just looking crazy. Walking around in dresses. What was the one put the blood in the shoe? All these kind of crazy things. Right. And they're they're the dominant influence, on our culture. But you have to ask again, who's writing the check to put them in place, and who's, making the decisions to put them in front on TV and in social media to put them in front of our youth to make them, want to go that way, because they're being marketed just as much as, the new pair of Jordans or the Tide soap. That image is being marketed to our community. And we understand who, we know, and I know you're intelligent enough to know who the marketers are. It isn't many people that look like us that's sitting back making these decisions that's going to say, okay, well, let's use this person to market to that community.
So how do we disrupt the propaganda then, Rev? Because that's really the issue. We got to cut the message off.
Yeah, well, again, and that's one of the things I like about Roland Martin and Philip Scott, where they're trying to create and in their lane, they're doing news, but we need more, conscious, black content producers that's going to produce content that's positive, and then we start, pushing that, and we start shunning and saying, hey, you know what? If you're being, marketed by, ABC, and I'm just using that as general, ABC Productions, then, we're not messing with you, because we know who's behind ABC Production, and they don't have our best interest in mind. They just want our dollars, at whatever cost, and they want our destruction. They want to, remain on top. They have, they have an agenda behind what they're doing. So
what about the whoppers and the gangster rappers that are just doing a money grab, and they don't care what they put out into the community? And then you have those artists that are like, I don't let my daughter listen to that, so you need to take care of your own kids. It's like, but you're putting this stuff out there, and the result of it.
Right. And so that's my whole point there. We then, like I said, if you're being marketed, you're the what you call them, whoppers and toppers, that's trying to, just put out the whatever to, get your money or whatever, you're going to go sign with Warner Brothers or, whoever, and you're going to, so you're letting them, market you to our community in a negative way, and they're rewarding your bad behavior. They're writing you a check for your bad behavior, and then they're using your bad behavior to market towards our community. And then they're looking at the destruction behind what, they market it to us, because they see it on the evening news every night. They know that's a product of what they marketed to us. There's no denying it. If we can look and see that that's a product of what's been marketed to us, the marketer definitely knows that's a product of what they marketed to us, and they continue to do it, then, hey, we're not going to, support you in the community. You're going to be shunned. Look, we're going to take your black card, plain and simple, because I'm not going to deal with it, and that's why, me personally, I don't know a lot of these names anymore, because, like, I woke up to it, and it's like, I know this is being marketed for me to think in a negative way towards my brother, man. Why should I? No, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to, let you, sway my thinking. I'm going to think for myself. I don't like nobody trying to tell me to do nothing, especially how to think, So when I figured out I was being manipulated, cut all of that off. I'm done with you. Like, nah, y'all manipulating me. So I'm done with it, and now, that gave me enough time to start picking up books and reading them, and, learning new things and learning more about who I am and where I come from, and knowing that my history is beyond, your slave narrative that you constantly, did we talk about that? Man, oh, that's a ticker right now. My ticker.
Jump in there.
So I just been paying attention, right? Amazon, they just released right on Amazon Prime.
Oh, we lost you a little bit, Ram.
I said Amazon Prime, they just released a new one, because I got Amazon Prime subscription, so I get like the little movie shows, right? And so I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's another slave movie. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, Rev, your mic isn't strong right now. You might have.
Can you hear me now?
Nah, you still kind of sound distant.
Oh wow, that's weird. Maybe, hold on, let me check my battery. Might be getting low.
All right, while Rev is checking that out, you were watching The Conduit with Marwan Cameron, and this is 2x2 Studies with Reverend Michael Ellington. So as you can see, we have stimulating conversations. And, we kind of have these discussions. We got a pregame where we talk about what we're going to talk about, and then we go. And this wasn't actually on the agenda, but this is perfect. And it was something that I wanted to get around to. And it's just, we got to talk about it, and people aren't talking about it. And I do agree with him. We do need to start supporting our Black media that is giving us news and history that is not given to us in mainstream media, that's not given us into our schools. And we've got to start to support it, right? That change is going to start with us. We have to be accountable, right? We are responsible for ourselves. We are responsible for each other. And so we cannot wait on others to change our situation and to give us what it is that we want, right? And, it's kind of like a dog chasing a car, right? You see a dog chasing the car, when he finally catches it, the dog doesn't even know what to do with it. So, they could give us everything that we asked for, and if we're not ready to accept it and do right by having it, then we're just going to go ahead and ruin it. And so you could say, well, it's all right to have it and do with it what we want, but we still got to get ready, right? And we need to heal and just really, take control of our own situation and be accountable. Rev, how you doing?
I'm good.
There you go. That's better.
Okay. So what I was trying to say was, so Amazon, and they've at least as far as I know, I don't watch a lot of TV. So this week that I kind of took off, I spent 2 days where I actually watched a couple of shows.
All right.
Wasn't a lot, but hey, I watched a couple of shows. But anyway, I noticed they had this show, I think it's called Underground or something like that, where it's another slave narrative, so to speak, whatever. And I was sitting back and I'm like, another one for real? And it's just been like a lot of them. And so I'm sitting back and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, again, who's behind this? Is it us? Who's putting the money up to produce this stuff and get it out, into our faces? It's not us. It's not us, most often, and yeah, sometimes we may write a story, or they may find an old book like 12 Years a Slave or something like that, and we're gonna make it into a movie or whatever, right? That has had a Black author. But most often, what they're doing is they're they're profiting, off of our story, and so it's like, okay, who's writing the check for these actors? Because you're getting a few Black actors, you're getting some white actors or whatever to play this, this version of history, which they never really tell the whole truth of it. Even when they do want to show it. And then, it's like, what is, to me, I feel like it's a type of fantasy porn is what I'm starting to look at it as. Because it's like, why do you constantly keep trying to retell the same story over and over? Like, okay, yeah, we get it. We was enslaved. We wasn't enslaved. Some slaves ran away. Some slaves rebelled. But that's the only part of the story you ever seem to want to tell. Like, it's more to it than just that. And for them to just kind of constantly reduce it to that, and of course they always got to put in, somebody getting beat. The slave getting beat. Can't have that one, story. From back then without a slave getting beat. I'm sorry, it's gonna happen, and I'm just tired of seeing it. Like, okay,
you know what, Rev? I wouldn't have a problem with that if they did it like the Passion of the Christ, where it was so visceral and real. And it's like, yeah, show them cutting the hands off, show them mutilating genitals, show the rape of the males and the females, show, you know, them making them have sex with each other and them having sex with them, you know, show the flesh being torn off the bodies, show them throwing the babies in the pit with the alligators, you know, show that. If you're going to tell the story, then tell it right. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. They never tell the whole story. And then, you know, it's like, okay, what about the achievements that slaves made? You know, because you never tell that part of the story. You know, because you've had, you know, and we know. I have not watched it. I will not watch it because I'm tired of supporting this crap. But anyway, what is it? I think it's on Netflix. I think Netflix did a show pretty much on food, about, you know, food from dang it, what was it called? They did a show on food. Anyway, and it's about, you know, food from back then or whatever, and they were talking about Martha Washington's cookbook. I'm sitting there like, yeah, for real, because like now I heard some people talking about it. I didn't actually watch the show, but, you know, this is what they're saying, that, you know, in there they have Martha Washington's cookbook, but we know that she had slaves as a cook, right? Now, I'm a descendant of George Washington, and, you know, people like to make the you know, statement, oh, George Washington freed all of his slaves before he died, and, you know, like he was this big noble man or whatever. Guess what? George didn't have that many slaves. Martha owned them all, and she didn't free her slaves. You know what I'm saying? And then this whole cookbook thing. Listen, Martha was a little rich white girl all her life. She had these slaves. You think she was in the kitchen cooking anything? Come on now, for real. So who cookbook she really, you know, then put her name on? And that's my whole point. What about our achievements that we know for a fact that they stole and put their name on, that we made? You know, y'all don't never want to tell them stories. You don't want to, you know what I'm saying, highlight those stories and show Black excellence at its best. Just like during the 90s, every role was, you know, a Black man was him being some thug or gangster. What about Black excellency? You know what I'm saying? Why can you never highlight, you know what I'm saying, us at our best? You know, where's that?
Well, there's two reasons. One, it doesn't sell. And two, if they do that, then that means that they're going to have to be held accountable, right? If they actually tell an accurate depiction of stolen inventions. And I mean, there's so many that I did, you know, during Black History Month. You would have to make it right? And so they're not going to go back and rewind time and say, hey, you know, cut the compounded dollar from all that theft and slavery and brutality and genocide. They're just not going to do it. So no, they have a vested interest in not actually telling the story. Ooh. But again, we won't support the feel good stories either, right? We want the drama.
Wait a minute. See, I like what you said there. Let's rewind a little bit though, because that's what I was that's what I was pointing at. You know, that invested interest. They have an invested interest at our demise at every level. So even when they pretend to make it seem like, yeah, they doing good for us, the overall picture is, it's, you know what I'm saying, to, you know, paint us as this, you know what I'm saying, I don't even know what they think in their mind, but it's to paint us in this negative light, whatever they got going on in their mind. But it's like, come on, we're more than that. You can't hold me at that level and say, oh, that's all I am. You don't know, you know. And so who's writing the checks? Who's making these decisions to say, yeah, let's put this to production? Because it is 9 out of 10. It's not people that look like you and I, you know, that's making these choices. And so they have, like you say, they have an invested interest in putting that forward, you know, to keep us in that mindset of this is all you are. You know what I'm saying? Even though you're free, we still subject at watching our brothers and sisters get beat. You know what I'm saying? Now I gotta sit, you know, and I'm paying, you know, for a service, and I gotta, you know, flip past, you know, images of, you know what I'm saying, people that look like me, you know what I'm saying, at their worst, you know, while you're gloating over it. right? You're making money off of it. You're profiting off of it, but I'm still painted at my worst. That don't make sense to me. And then not only am I painted at my worst, and I gotta sit here and watch this, fictional show, or maybe even it's based on reality. But then when I turn that off and I turn the news on, I gotta watch, myself get shot in the head, shot in the back, knee on in, with a knee on my neck, and a knee in my back. I gotta watch all of this happen to me again when I turn the movie off. And I got to watch it on the 6 o'clock news and the 11 o'clock news and the 10 o'clock news. And then guess what? We're going to talk about it again at, 4 a.m., when you wake up. You're going to go to sleep watching you get murdered, and you're going to wake up watching yourself get murdered. So again, when do we have time, to, exhale from, like you said, this propaganda of us, constantly being under their boot, we're constantly.
And I'm there with you, Rev. And that begs the question for me is, here again, what's the solution? Because if we didn't participate, it wouldn't exist, because they're not going to put themselves in blackface and do it now, right? So the only way they can tell the stories is if we participate in these fictional stories that they want to tell. In the 90s when we were thugs and gangsters and drug dealers and everything else and pimps, right? We had to do that. And when we know historically that aspiring actors had to take the roles that were available to get to have the Denzels today, right? So there's that kind of justification. So does LeBron and, our stars and our singers, do they just say, you know what, we're not going to produce, we're not going to use our talents and take care of ourselves, our families, because it's detrimental to the Black community, especially when we're fractured in the Black community? Some of us will just as soon as spit on you or kill you versus support you and help you. We were just talking about supporting Black business 2 days ago with Tasia.
Well, we're almost at the 2-hour mark, so I think this is a great wrapping it up point right here. And we
drop a little.
yeah. Look right here. This is what we must remember, right?
Yeah.
Is Hebrews chapter 11.
All right.
Now Hebrews 11, they call that the faith chapter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we look at Hebrews chapter 11, it tells us of all the people that died in faith without having received the promise. And that's what we gotta get back to. We gotta get back to that Hebrews 11, where it's like, you know what? I may not, become filthy rich off of this. I may not, get a $20 million check in the mail, for doing this, or, get this, 5 album deal at, $60 million for, doing this. But, if I sacrifice right now, guess what? My kids and my grandkids ain't got to go through what I'm going through. They ain't got to see what I'm seeing. You know what I'm saying?
That's facts. You went back out, Rev. You went back out. I don't want you to miss this point.
Can you hear
me? Nope, it's the same.
It's still out. I don't know what's going on. Hold on.
Yeah, you're making a good point. So I don't want it to be lost. This is your.
Yeah. I don't either. I think the world needs to hear this one. Hold on. Let me see what's going on.
All right. Well, Rev is fixing that. Again, you're watching The Conduit, Marwan Cameron. You're with Reverend Michael Ellington, 2x2 Studies. Again, we have these discussions and we'll come to you every week. And we will be getting back on track. Like I said, we've got a few that are in the can. You're going to see them out of order. This will post today, and then the other 2 or 3 episodes will post next week and the week after. So stay tuned for that. We are actually we're thinking about shifting to a live format, so folks can participate. Type in the chat. I know someone wanted to join in our conversation last on Saturday with Tasia and myself. So, we'll have to work out how something like that would do, because we want to, make sure that people kind of come on, maybe a quick comment or a question we answer that and then kind of get on to the next. Get kind of stuck with folks filibustering the podcast, but yeah, I think it'd be great because we want to establish that. So how you doing, Rem?
I'm good. How's the sound?
Yeah, you sound the same.
What's going on?
You know how it is. The devil doesn't want you to make your point. So yeah, it's still the same, man.
I'm trying to hit the mute button and unmute it. I don't know what else to do.
You want to hang up and then call back in and see if that'll do it. Reconnect you. All right, so Rev is gonna try to reconnect here.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Nah, it's the same.
Hold on, I think I know what it is. I found it.
So in the meantime, remember we have the 1-on-1 3-on-3 basketball tournament coming up. You can register for the tournament at ksptournament.com. The tournament will be Friday, August 30, or July 30, Saturday, July 31st, and August 1st, which is that Sunday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the end of the month in July. Sign up today, ksptournament.com. We're going to have a lot of fun, prizes, raffles. If you win the tournament, there's going to be prize money. There's going to be all kinds of things that go on at this thing. So it'll be really good. Kids at Public Health is going to have the Johnson & Johnson and the Pfizer vaccine available on hand. And as you know, as time goes past, they're approving it for, folks that are younger and younger. So it's a good time to get vaccinated. If you need a ride, go ahead and give us a call, G2-360-373-3000. Let us take care of your transportation needs. And again, if it has to do with eviction assistance or with the vaccine, your ride is free. So give us a call, 360-373-3000. Like I said, later on this week, it is Monday. I have some huge announcements that I'll be sharing. I believe they'll probably start tomorrow. So stay tuned. As you know, this Thursday, we are going to have, is it this Thursday coming up? Yeah, Juneteenth. The first celebration will be this Thursday in the Kmart parking lot. So come on down. They will have food, Goodwill, and several others will be there. So come on to that on Saturday on actual Juneteenth. They're going to meet at the Norm Dix building, and I believe they're going to march down to Manette, where there will be booths and tables again for that. Friday, Rev, you got to tune in because I've got Roosevelt Smith at 1300 coming on. And if you saw the podcast where I went to the Africana Museum, I'm interviewing Roosevelt Smith, and he's going to talk about Black history. He's going to talk about Kitsap Black history, and I'm hoping people will ask him questions about history and about himself as a veteran. And his grandson wants to follow in his footsteps, which I think is powerful. So please make some time to tune in to that, Rev, on this Friday at 1 p.m. and ask Mr. Roosevelt some questions. So we definitely want to support him. G2 is donating $200 to that exhibit, and we just think it's powerful. But you're coming in great.
Amen. Okay, so I will tune in on Friday for Mr. Smith, and try and ask some questions if I can. So, okay, what I was getting back to, solution orientated. Again, it's about the next generation. You know what I'm saying, and pouring into them. What wasn't poured into us. And having the mindset to say, you know what, we may have to sacrifice one or two generations, to get where we ultimately should be at. And my scripture that I was kind of, referring to was in Hebrews 11, the entire chapter, but just for reference, 12a, where it says, by faith, he sojourned, through faith also Hold on. Let me read it out of this one here. I was in the other one. Here we go. Therefore, by faith, oh, 13. That's why I was messing up. These all died in faith without having received the promises, but they saw them from a distance, greeted them, and confessed that they were foreigners and temporary residents on the earth. So, in other words, what the Bible's saying is, listen, God made these promises to Abraham. Abraham didn't get that promise because the promise, ultimately was for his seed, those that came behind him. And if we get to a point where, are you froze?
No, I'm not froze.
Oh, okay.
I'm listening.
You was really, really still. But ultimately, if we get to a point where we can start teaching our youth and say, hey, you know what, sacrifice just a little bit so that, your kids and your grandkids can have better and they don't have to go through what we're going through right now. If we support people like Roland and Phil Scott and Karen Hunter and Dr. Carr and all these other people that are doing things to, promote, Black excellency, and say, hey, okay, they're not making the big fancy, money and, riding in the big fancy cars, because right now what they're doing is they're building something that, is how would I put it? It has a lot of substance to it. It's not full of a lot of fluff and fancy Hollywood magic and all this stuff. It really doesn't exist. I don't know if you ever watched that one episode of Cribs where they had Redman on there. And he was like, he bust the whole game down. He was like, yeah, I ain't renting no house. He was telling how all these other, rappers and stuff, they was renting these mansions, and cars, trying to pretend like this was their stuff when they really didn't have it. And he was like, no, I wasn't renting it. And he showed this little busted down, 2-bedroom townhouse that he's still living in to this day. He's like, I ain't trying to put on the airs. And so when we get to that point and say, you know what, I'm not gonna, go along with, the image you want me to put forth. I'm gonna be real and honest about this, so I can try and help elevate my people, and we start saying no to, their money. Guess what? They start losing money and we start actually gaining money. Because the only reason they have all this money to write a $20 million check to Denzel and Will Smith is because we're supporting it with our Black dollars. But when we start pulling our Black dollars back and saying, you know what, I'm not supporting that foolishness. Guess what? I'm going to go over here and, put this 20 down, here with Phil, and help bring this brother up and, subscribe to his Patreon. Or I'm finna, donate to Roland's, Roland Martin's Unfiltered and help build up his studio so he can get, more Black excellency, so we can see more people that look like us, as experts on a news show versus, the other man. So then we start empowering ourselves and the money starts circulating in our neighborhood, in our community, and then they will start coming after us and like saying, hey, I want to put money behind you because, I'm going to invest in this because I'm not getting y'all dollars. So I got to invest in what you're doing in order to get a return on my dollar because you're not, your community is no longer, running to stuff their money in my pocket. And so that's the whole, premise behind the Hebrews 11 is, what is something greater if we're willing to, say, you know what, I'm not going to be selfish and individualism, be all about self. I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to do, like I was saying earlier, build my media company, and I may not never see, the fruits of that. But if my grandchildren and my great-great-grandchildren, they see the fruits of it, and they have the same mindset and the same, maybe even better, I pray, because my kids are already smarter than me. So I pray my grandkids even smarter than them. But, and they thinking on these higher levels about community and not just, self, then, we elevate all. And, so it's like, hey, you know, I don't care if Martin Lawrence, finna go put on another fat suit and play Big Mama again. Guess what? I'm not supporting that. You know what I'm saying? Because I know, who's really behind that. You know what I'm saying? Guess what? Martin already got his check. So I don't need to run out to the theaters to go pay for to see that. Because they already paid him. You know what I'm saying? They paid him up front. They just trying to recoup their money at the box office. So hey, too bad on you, Martin. Go do something for the community, bro. And that's where I'm at with it.
That's absolutely facts, Rev. And like I said, I'm really interested in solutions. We have to talk about the problem and find out and get to the root of the issue. And, I think you just said it right there, right? I'm saying accountability, and then you're giving the examples of what accountability looks like, right? It's like, again, Black culture is something that is revered and followed, worldwide, right? We are trendsetters in everything that we do. And so we're either going to put the WAP out there, or we're going to put conscious rap out there. We're either going to put this out there, or we're going to put that out there. So if we say, look, we're not behind that, right? If Cardi B wants to talk about something that's uplifting, that's what we're going to support, right? We're not going to, exalt these things that are eroding the Black community. Other people will get in line, right? KRS-One is like a prophet, in his rhymes and the things that he was saying. And, there wasn't a lot of fanfare like that. But when you rank him as, where is he as far as the top rappers, he's up there, in the top 10, for a lot of folks. For some people, the top 5. Well, how can you be the top 5 and not be, bigger than what you are, right? And so we got to get our priorities straight. And once we do that in every aspect, we no longer are, pedestalizing our athletes and our singers, but we're doing that with our teachers and our professors, right? Once we begin to do that, right, then we begin to free ourselves and unshackle ourselves from the bonds that are keeping us oppressed. Because at this point, it really is on us. It's sad to hear that it could take a generation or two, but that's absolute facts. Enough people have to wake up, and then we have to get on code together, and then we have to start building together. We're so damaged, right? We don't trust each other. We don't want to support each other. And the first sign of any kind of trouble, we're bailing out, right? See, I knew he was like that. I told you couldn't trust that dude, right? And it's like, but hey, we're all hurt, we're all injured, and we're not going to walk forward perfectly because of all that we've gone through. But we can't forgive our brother and sister, but then we can forgive everyone else. We've got to do that. That's the accountability that has to take place, and then we will see the change. We don't have to change the whole country at one time. We don't have to change the state at one time. It starts at home. You train at home. My dad said training starts at home, right? So you train yourself, and then you train your spouse, you train your children, and then you train your extended family, and you let it come out from there. And that will be the ripple effect that will be lasting. You know what I'm saying?
Amen. Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. And yeah, it is, kind of sad. It'll take a generation or two, but like I said, this didn't happen overnight either. What I'm saying? It didn't get to this point overnight. But if, what I'm saying, like I said, my Bible taught me not to argue with fools, what I'm saying, talk with them, so all of us that's out there still on that foolish stuff, you know what? I ain't even finna deal with you, what I'm saying? Hey, look, let me, go ahead and talk to these babies, what I'm saying, and instill in them, some facts, some truth, some understanding, where they start looking, like I said, critically at what's really happening and how it's happening. And they're really sitting back and kind of analyzing and okay, why is this way? And why are you, why are they putting on another, African show? What I'm saying? This is a series on Amazon. I couldn't find it. Yeah, here you go. Why are they putting, another one of these on here? For what reason? What I'm saying? This story has been told. Yeah, Underground Railroad. That's the name of it. This story been told so many times. You know what I'm saying? New limited series. For
Mm-hmm.
real? You
Right.
know, like we know our history, you know what I'm saying? And then I don't need you to tell me, you know what I'm saying? I don't need, I mean, like, how can I listen to my oppressor tell me what happened to me? You know what I'm saying? No. If anything, I want to hear it from, you know what I'm saying, my own voice telling me like what happened. Let me hear, because I know I'm gonna get it unadulterated. It's gonna be without the filter. It's gonna be without, you know what I'm saying, that Hollywood magic glossing over and, you know what I'm saying, have you not really paying attention to what's really happening. Because the way they tell the story, you're not really, you know what I'm saying, you're not coming away like angry, and I ain't saying angry like, okay, I want to go, jump on all white people, but angry like, you know what? I want to start thinking differently. I don't want to start, I want to start looking at my brothers and sisters in a different way and start loving on them. That's the type of anger we need to have. You know what I'm saying? Like, why have I been so angry at, you know what I'm saying, Ray down the street, you know what I'm saying? He in the same situation I'm in. That's my
Mm-hmm.
brother. You know what I'm saying? But the way they tell it, I'm still mad at Ray when I walk away from watching this series. And it shouldn't be that way. But when I tell the story, when you tell the story, when we tell our own story, we're able to, convey it in a way where it's like, listen, we gotta, you know what I'm saying, do something. And we gotta do something. And we start seeing the urgency in the matter. Because the longer this goes on, the harder it, the deeper the hole gets, the harder it gets to come back from this, and we got to start doing something like now, so I don't have all the answers, you know what I'm saying, and I can't do it all, but I could do my part. You could do your part, you know what I'm saying, and if you know what I'm saying, I could tap somebody else on the shoulder and they wake up, and then they could do their part, and they tap somebody on the shoulder, and next thing you know, we all woke and we all doing our part, and we ain't, you know what I'm saying, in the situation that we've been in.
Those are facts. And I think, we are doing the now, right? We're not waiting on it. We're taking action on it. This isn't something that we were doing at the beginning of last year or the year before that. So it is different. There is a sea change, and we're not waiting. We ourselves are being accountable and starting to make that change. And it's fantastic. As always, Rev, it is a pleasure having these discussions with you.
Amen.
So very stimulating, and I know that it is making a difference in other people's lives because they do share that with me, and they appreciate our effort and our time. So we're going to continue to bring it to them and continue to change the world, a little bit at a time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
All
sir.
right. Well, you got any final thoughts that you want to say?
Just remember, it ain't just about you, you know what I'm saying? It's about all of us, so you got to think about your generations to come. What are they gonna, have? Where are they gonna be at? And so if you don't start thinking about your great grandkids, you know what I'm saying, yesterday, then they're gonna be right where you at today.
Facts, absolute facts. All right, well, I'm gonna let that be the last word. I am Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit for Reverend Michael Ellington, 2x2 Studies. We will see you next time. All right, y'all. So that was our show from Monday. Great show. I love having conversations with the Rev. And really allows us to have these conversations that, quite frankly, as I was saying before, they're just not talked about in mainstream media. We will have these conversations in different spaces, in the barbershop, around the table, things of that nature. But it's time to kind of expand those conversations, because even then, some people are not in those conversations and are able to participate. And what typically happens, or what is unfortunate, is even in your own pockets of your own communities, right? It's hard to have a discussion where there's a diversity of thought, right? And so we have this prevailing thought. You've got your leaders that exist in the community, and those thoughts that kind of rise to the top can drown out the conversation for debate and just dialogue, right? And so I think these conversations are tremendously important for us to have. And as I said, I so look forward to, collaborating with different folks and listening to their perspectives and um, just seeing how they think and navigate the world based on what they believe in. And yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's a lot of fun. So anyway, we will continue to bring you shows. I want you to look in the ticker there. You'll see register for the basketball tournament, www.ksptournament.com. You can call 360-340-3581 or email subscribe at ksptournament.com if you have any questions. But go ahead and get subscribed. Again, we hope that you will join us Friday for the Kitsap County Historical Museum. We'll have Roosevelt Smith on. As you know, I looked at the Africana exhibit, and so we'll have him on Friday, June 18 at 1 p.m. So if you have questions, you can submit those in or tune in and type them in the chat. We may even have some folks that will come in and be up live with Mr. Smith. So just really looking forward to, talking with him and kind of picking his brain. And man, it's our history has not been told and our history has been lost. And so for those of us that are the caretakers of our history, it is tremendously important for us to listen to and learn our history and be able to share it with other generations. And so I think these are some really, really important experiences that folks need to have. As I said before in my podcast yesterday, kind of talking about who am I and my history and my bloodline and not knowing what that is, right? I don't even know, who I am, where I come from, what were my people about? What was my potential support network and all those things. So, that's difficult. But, again, we're going to be the change that we want to see. We're going to be about it and not talk about it. We'll talk about it, but we're going to be about it simultaneously. And so we got to do the work, as you know, solution oriented, right? We do need to have a discussion and dive deep and analyze exactly what the problem is and not necessarily the symptoms. And then we need to try some things. And what I tell my students is this: do not be afraid to fail. Really, the only failure is in you not trying. You measure twice, you cut once, and if it doesn't work out, you go back to the drawing board. But do try. Don't let the fact of Rev had a saying, but don't allow your desire to be perfect, to not make a false step, be the reason why you don't get started and try. Because if that's the case, none of us would ever start because we're not going to be perfect, right? My podcast is still a hot mess, with technology and thumbnails and everything else. But at the end of the day, getting the message out is important. And, as as the library grows, folks will be able to go back and listen to these conversations and understand the different perspectives and hopefully even find their own voice. And so, that is my hope and my aim for doing these things. One, last thing I want to talk about, I think that that I should talk about is my daily check-in for COVID. So I am now I got it last Saturday, so it's Tuesday morning. It's 3 a.m. right now for this podcast, and I'm feeling pretty good. As I said before, I still have that mild rash on my side. Other than that, I'm doing okay. I will say that I still kind of feel a little lethargic. But again, it's 3 a.m. So, what I'm saying? It's kind of hard to, drill down and identify exactly what is and why it is, when I kind of keep these hours. And so you've got, Zoom meetings in the morning and, you're doing a podcast throughout the day. And then, you're up at night, broadcasting and, it never ends. So, eventually I'll get a little bit of rest, but hey, the work must be done. And so this is what it is. We do what we do. Rob and Stephanie are doing better. Both of them were in full swing today doing their thing. Again, they received the Pfizer. Again, if you are considering getting the vaccine, we will be providing free transportation for that. And also, if you need rental assistance, anything that is related to completing your application for that qualifies for free transportation also. So again, give us a call, 360-373-3000. Gather Together, Grow Together is here for you, ready to serve. So with that, it is time for me to transition. And you know what's so awesome? Like when you're up like this, I get to go ahead and turn back into Clark Kent, and I get to go and hit the gym. And there might be like 2 people at Planet Fitness right now. So definitely looking forward to getting in there. So I am on my way. Man, I don't even know when I'm going to get in the bed or if I'm going to get in the bed. But man, you got to do it. You got to do it. All right, y'all. Be well. Take care of each other. I'm R1 Cameron. This is The Conduit. Until next time.